For female cyclists and female athletes, there is a lot of debate about whether our menstrual cycle affects our performance, how, when, where, and what we need to do about it. A recent systematic review found that, or concluded that performance may be reduced during the follicular phase of our cycle, which is the beginning. It begins with the arrival of our period. However, the quality of evidence was poor, inconclusive, and what I've seen, I know some women that actually perform their best when they're having their menstrual cycle, which is why it is so important to track your cycle and understand how your hormone fluctuations affect you on an individual level. And this is because there is so much huge variation in how the menstrual cycle affects women. Some women get no symptoms at all. Others are bedbound, they're vomiting, they're cramping, they can't even think clearly. It is so diverse. Even within the same woman, there can be variations in how you experience your cycle month to month throughout the year. So what do you do when there is so much variation and so much inconclusive results and information there about the menstrual cycle? You track it for yourself. This is why I'm always encouraging my female athletes to learn their own bodies and making tweaks and adjustments and testing things out so they know and they feel really confident because they understand how their bodies are working and what is and isn't serving them. Have you ever thought about and noticed what changes you are experiencing in terms of performance, your energy levels, your mood around your menstrual cycle? If you haven't, then it's definitely time to start because our hormones are in this constant state of change. The so-called unicorn perfect menstrual cycle lasts about 28 days. However, there's not that many women that actually have that perfect 28-day cycle. Some women, it might be 23 or 24 days. Others, it might be 34, 35, 36 days. There is a lot of variation. And with each woman, it's going to vary from month to month. And so when it comes to research in female athletes, we need to take 4 times as much data from a woman in order to see how things are affecting them throughout the month. But also we need repeat data from multiple months to ensure, like, was this a fluke or was this a one-off or is this actually a consistent pattern for this woman? Which is why it takes such a long time for us to collect data and do research on women. As a side note, if you do come across any studies that are looking for female athletes or looking for female participants, then I really do encourage you to put your hand forward. Get in touch with universities or research centers that are near you, because I know many studies that really struggle to get enough female participants. So it's all well and good having that flag of like, we need more research in women, but we need to actually be contributing to this and supporting. I've been a research participant in a number of studies. I've given muscle samples, I've given blood tests, I've given all the things, and it takes a lot longer for them to firstly recruit women and to keep them in the studies and to collect that data. So if you can get involved, that helps us to learn sooner how our bodies are evolving and how our bodies change and how health and nutrition and all this stuff affects us. So that's a bit of a side note. But when it comes back to this menstrual cycle, as I said, the standard unicorn perfect menstrual cycle is about 28 days. And that first day of the cycle begins when our period starts. The first half of the month, the first half of our menstrual cycle is the follicular phase. And this is followed by the luteal phase, and ovulation occurs somewhere in the middle. In the early follicular phase, when we start a period, we are going to have low estrogen levels and we're going to have low progesterone levels. When ovulation occurs around day 13, 14, 15, we have high estrogen levels and low progesterone levels. However, when we get to the mid-luteal phase, we're about a week out from our period starting again, this is when we have both high estrogen and high progesterone levels. And there is a lot of different things that are going on in our bodies around these fluctuations in terms of like our energy levels, our body composition, our fluid shifts and changes. Some women have more extreme responses than others. Like I know for myself, about the week before my period comes, like my weight as a number and my fluid shifts, like I'm holding sometimes 1 or 2, sometimes even 3 typically about 2 kilos of extra fluid in that week before my period comes. And I know this because I've tracked this over multiple years and I've seen this consistently happen, consistently go up and down. But for some women, if they're not aware of this, then they might see that shift on the scales go up and panic, thinking they've gained weight. And then a week later, be like, I've lost weight. What's going on? Your body weight has probably actually stayed very consistent in terms of body composition. It's just that the fluid shifts have resulted in more mass. And this is why understanding you and understanding your patterns can then help you to make smarter food choices and be more intentional. Because with that weight shift, I know for a lot of people, when they get on the scale, if they have seen their weight go up, they see that as like a bad thing and they panic, and then that will influence their food choices the rest of the day. If you know that that weight is an increase of water, you are then able to rationalize it and mentally reassure yourself not to restrict, that a week later it's going to be going down. It's going to be back to sort of like a normal sort of playing field. And so when you understand your patterns and you know how they evolve, you can then start to plug and play and test things out to see if something does or doesn't work for you. Which is why if you are a female athlete or you know a female athlete, then I encourage you to track your menstrual cycle, or encourage them to track it if they aren't already, so that you can identify these unique patterns and challenges that you're experiencing and start to explore how it affects your performance and how it affects your training. Because if you have a race on a certain day that is a certain part of the month, you may not be able to determine that that's going to happen at the perfect time of the month for you. I do love the fact that Training Peaks allows you to track your menstrual cycle over time and give your coach awareness of how this may be affecting you. And if you're working with your coach really well, they will perhaps be able to align your training better with your menstrual cycle. So when you are stronger, you have more motivation, they might be able to put better training sessions in there that align with where you're at that time of the month. Changes in your period are good indications of your physical, mental, emotional. So for example, if you are stressed, if you're under fueling, under eating, if your training is out of balance, that can show up in your menstrual cycle. So for example, I know a number of years ago, I was very stressed, had a few stressful situations hit me all at once, and my period was late by about 2 weeks. And I was like, what is going on? Had no other reason to be concerned about my period being late, but it was mentally stressing me out, because I'm like, what's going on? I was eating well. It was stress, and that stress can come from external stress, it can come from internal stress, or it could be from training stress. I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that training is a big stress. And if we are training a lot as women and we aren't fueling our training, that puts a lot of stress on our bodies, which can result in our body shutting down normal responses and normal hormone changes, which is why if you aren't getting a period, that's a big red flag that you are in reds, that you're under fueling your training. So if you are tracking, things that I would consider worth tracking and taking note of like the duration of your cycle, how heavy it is, cramping, nausea, vomiting, backache, bloating, weight fluctuations, the motivation to train, fatigue and tiredness level, performance changes, and emotional state. Sometimes these changes can be very subtle, which is why being intentional and making these notes and looking for them and getting curious of like, what's going on for me? And there's a lot of period trackers out there that can help you to record this. And I've also found that an Oura ring, I've got an Oura ring which measures my temperature. I've found that this can be really useful as well to also predict and know when my cycle is about to come, because very small, minute changes in temperature show up. And I can almost predict to the day when a period will occur, because my temperature will drop by about 0.2 degrees. Micro changes, but it consistently every month goes up and down around those fluctuations in hormones of estrogen and progesterone throughout the month. And as I said before, if you aren't getting a period, that's a big red flag that you aren't eating enough in training, or perhaps not enough overall. And I found with my female athletes and the women I've worked with who haven't been having a period, and sometimes this has been 6, 7, 8, 9 years of no period, it's the food in training that makes or breaks. A small amount, about 300 calories, can be the difference between no period and a period, but it's the food in training particularly that helps to bring it back. And a lot of times people and women are restricting food because they don't want to gain weight. But I found, again, getting more of this food and fuel into the training helps to normalize the hormone balances, helps to recalibrate the body so it's not in this state of stress, and optimizes body composition. Because if we aren't fueling our training, as women especially, it puts us on a big strain, a big stress that increases our cortisol levels. So even if there is an overall energy deficit in theory, our bodies won't let us lose the weight. And which is partly why we really want to make sure that we are addressing the imbalances in energy across the day in everyday life, but especially the fueling in training so that it helps our performance, health, our recovery, and our body composition. If you are on birth control, different kettle of fish, and that's a different story. But if you aren't, and you aren't having a regular menstrual cycle, then I would definitely be talking to a coach, your doctor, and or sports dietitian to see about how you could perhaps get better balance in your life to support that. So if you aren't already, I do highly encourage you to start recording your menstrual cycle to understand your unique patterns, the challenges you experience, and how they influence your food choices and your food intake. This knowledge and awareness can help you then to plan ahead of time and to factor in those changes so that you can make better decisions when that time of the month comes around. If you would like to learn more about how to fuel your cycling as a female cyclist, then I would love to invite you to come and join me for an online nutrition workshop for female cyclists that I'm hosting next month on the 7th and the 8th of March. If you're listening to this after the fact, you can watch it on replay when you join my team, but you can grab a ticket at gemmasampson.com/events. I hope to see you there. That's all for today. Like, subscribe, fuel your ride, and I will see you next time.